I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story like this, but here we are. My name's David, 47, and I've been married to Helen for 24 years. Or I guess I should say had been married. Helen and I met in college. She wanted to be a lawyer, and I supported her through law school while I worked 2 jobs. We built a life together. I thought we were solid. She made it to partner at her firm. I started my own business. We were the kind of couple people looked at and thought, yeah, they have it figured out. Except we didn't. I first noticed something was off about a year ago. She got distant. Not just tired from work distant, but like I was a stranger in my own home. No more morning kisses. No more laughing at dumb TV shows. No more asking how my day was. Just cold, distant, detached. I chalked it up to stress. Maybe burnout. I tried to be patient. But then she started going out more. Late meetings. Business trips. Girls' nights. Then last Friday she sat me down. No warning. No hesitation. Just looked me in the eye and said it. I'm seeing someone else. His name is Ray. I'll be gone for the weekend with him. That was it. No remorse. No regret. Just an announcement, like she was telling me she changed the Wi-Fi password. I just sat there, stunned. You're what? David, let's be adults about this. We've grown apart. It happens. I asked her if she even cared. If our 24 years together meant anything. She sighed, like I was exhausting her. Don't make this dramatic. Ray makes me feel alive again. I deserve that. Then she grabbed her bag and left. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I sat there for a long time after Helen left. Just staring at the door like an idiot, waiting for her to walk back in and say it was all a joke. But she didn't. I checked the time. 7:42 p.m. I should have been eating dinner with my wife, maybe talking about our weekend plans. Instead, she was off with Ray Bland, a name so stupid it sounded fake. Who the hell was this guy? Some hotshot lawyer? A client? I had no clue. My hands were shaking. My head was pounding. I picked up my phone and scrolled through our texts. Nothing. No apologies. No hesitation. Just business as usual until she decided to inform me that our marriage was over. I wasn't even worth a lie. My first thought? I wanted to hurt her. I wanted to hurt him. The kind of thoughts that land guys like me in handcuffs. But I wasn't stupid. Instead, I took a deep breath and started thinking. She thinks she can just walk out and have her fun while I sit here like an idiot? Not happening. I grabbed my laptop and started digging. Helen was careful, no obvious signs of an affair, but she wasn't as smart as she thought. A quick look at our bank statements showed she booked a luxury cabin for the weekend. 4-2. Paid for with our joint account. That was my first win. If she wanted a fresh start, I'd make damn sure she started from rock bottom. I grabbed my car keys and drove to the bank. I had just enough time before they closed. I pulled into the bank parking lot at 8:15 p.m., 15 minutes before closing. Walked straight to the teller, smiling like it was just another day. Hey, I need to make a withdrawal. Of course, sir. How much? Everything. The teller blinked. Excuse me? Everything in my personal account. And half of the joint one. She hesitated. Are you sure? Yeah. My wife and I are splitting up. I just want my share. Technically, I could have taken all of it. It was a joint account after all, but I wasn't looking to get in trouble. Just wanted to make sure Helen and Ray Bland didn't have a free weekend on my dime. 15 minutes later, I walked out with a cashier's check and some cash. Enough to put Helen in a very uncomfortable position when she realized what I'd done. On the drive home, I started planning my next move. See, Helen didn't just cheat on me. She disrespected me. She thought she could toss me aside like some outdated office chair and ride off into the sunset with another man. That's what stung the most, not just the betrayal, but the absolute lack of care. She needed to learn what consequences felt like. And I had a perfect idea where to start. I grabbed my phone and called her law firm. Left a voicemail for one of the senior partners, the guy who really ran the place. Hey, this is David, Helen's husband. I just wanted to give you a heads up. Helen's been having an affair with someone named Ray Bland. Not sure if he's a client, but I figured you'd want to know. Have a great night. I hung up, feeling a little lighter. I wasn't done yet. Not even close. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Helen and Ray together, laughing, drinking, touching. It made my stomach turn. I wasn't just sad. I wasn't just angry. I was something deeper than that. Something that made my whole body feel hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and left me with nothing but the sound of my own heartbeat. By the time the sun came up, I had already showered, dressed, and made coffee that I didn't even drink. My mind was racing. I knew Helen wouldn't check our bank account right away. She was too busy playing house with Ray. But when she did, oh, it was going to be glorious. I pictured it. She'd wake up in their cozy little cabin, roll over, and check her phone, maybe to order some overpriced room service. And that's when she'd see it. The balance wouldn't be what she expected. She'd probably try calling the bank first. Maybe even try calling me. But I wouldn't answer. No, I had other things to do. Around 9 a.m., I checked my email. Bingo. I had a reply from the senior partner at Helen's firm. David, I appreciate you reaching out. While we do not involve ourselves in personal matters, I assure you we take professionalism seriously. If this situation involves a client, we will address it accordingly. Thank you for your concern. I could feel the tension in his words. He was covering himself legally, but I knew what that meant. If Helen had been stupid enough to mess around with a client, she was screwed. But that wasn't even the best part. I still had one last move to play before the real fireworks started. By noon, I had packed a small bag. Not much, just a few clothes, my laptop, and my important documents. Then I walked over to my desk, grabbed a notepad, and wrote Helen a letter. It wasn't long. Since you made your decision so easily, I figured I'd make mine. I took my share of the money. You can have whatever's left. Don't bother coming home looking for me. I won't be here. You and Ray deserve each other. Enjoy your new life. Goodbye. David. I left the note on the kitchen counter, right where she'd see it the moment she walked in. And then, I walked out the door. I didn't even look back. I drove for hours, aimless at first, letting the road eat up the miles while my mind spun through every scenario. Would Helen even care when she saw the note? Would she panic? Would she even bother trying to call me? I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing. Her weekend getaway was about to turn into a disaster. By the time I checked into a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, my phone was already blowing up. Helen, 6:42 p.m. David, where is the money? Helen, 6:45 p.m. David, what did you do? Helen, 6:55 p.m. Answer your phone. Helen, 7:10 p.m. You're being childish. We need to talk. Helen, 7:15 p.m. David, be reasonable. We are both adults. Helen, 7:30 p.m. You're scaring me. Where are you? And then? Nothing. I could picture it. The exact moment she refreshed the account again, hoping it was some mistake. Maybe she even called the bank, only to confirm that, no, the money was really gone. I almost laughed. Helen didn't care about me. But she sure as hell cared about the money. I tossed my phone onto the motel bed and stretched out, feeling lighter than I had in months. Let her sit with the panic for a while. Let her try to explain to her boyfriend why their dream weekend suddenly had a budget of whatever cash she had in her purse. But just as I was starting to enjoy the silence, my phone buzzed again. Not Helen this time. A friend from her law firm. Someone I knew well enough. Lisa, one of the younger attorneys. Lisa, 7:40 p.m. David, I don't know what's going on, but Helen just left the office group chat. Did something happen? That was interesting. I texted back, keeping it vague. Me, 7:42 p.m. Might be a rough weekend for Helen. Keep me posted if you hear anything. Lisa didn't ask questions, but I had a feeling she'd be watching. And that was exactly what I wanted. I woke up the next morning to 23 missed calls and over 50 unread texts. Helen. Helen's sister. A few mutual friends. And the best one? A number I didn't recognize. I listened to the voicemail, and the moment I heard the voice, I smiled. David. This is Ray. Call me back. No. Oh, buddy. You have no idea what you just walked into. I stared at my phone, listening to Ray's voicemail again. David. This is Ray. Call me back. No. He sounded pissed. Like really pissed. His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the anger under it. That meant things were falling apart. I let the voicemail sit for a few minutes while I grabbed some breakfast from the motel's sad little lobby, a stale bagel and bad coffee. But the food didn't matter. I was savoring the moment. Ray Bland, the man who thought he could steal my wife and walk away without a scratch, was desperate to talk to me. So I did what any sane man would do. I ignored him. Instead, I took my time eating, flipped through my texts, and let the pressure build. Helen had texted me at least 20 times overnight. The messages started off angry. Helen, 11:15 p.m., I can't believe you did this. You're acting like a child. Helen, 11:42 p.m., how could you embarrass me like this? Helen, 12:30 a.m., are you happy? Ray had to cover the hotel costs himself. Then moved into full-on panic mode. Helen, 1:10, David, please, I need to talk to you. Helen, 2:05 a.m., this isn't funny anymore. Where are you? Helen, 3:30 a.m., I'm sorry. Please just call me. It was like watching someone go through the 5 stages of grief in real time. But then I saw something that made me pause. Helen's sister, 7 a.m., David, whatever you did, you need to fix it. Helen's a mess. She called Mom at 4 a.m. crying. She won't talk to me. Please just talk to her. That was unexpected. Helen wasn't the type to break down. She was cold. Calculated. She planned everything. But now she was crumbling. I wasn't sure how to feel about that. But I did know one thing. It wasn't enough. By 10 a.m., my phone was ringing again. It was the same unknown number. This time, I answered. David. His voice was clipped, like he was barely holding back his frustration. I stayed silent. Let him sit in it. Look, man, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this needs to stop. I smiled. What exactly needs to stop, Ray? You know damn well what I'm talking about, he snapped. Helen's falling apart. She won't eat, she won't talk, she just keeps staring at her phone. She won't even leave the cabin. She looks like a ghost. I took a slow sip of my coffee. And why is that my problem? Because you're her husband, Ray growled. You can't just disappear like this. She's scared, man. Just tell her you're okay so she stops acting like a damn widow. I almost laughed. A widow? Oh, that was rich. You sure you want to talk about marriage, Ray? Because last I checked, you were pretty happy screwing mine up. Silence. I get it. You're hurt. But you need to be an adult about this. That set me off. I needed to be an adult? After he and Helen had been sneaking around behind my back? After she had coldly told me she was leaving and walked out without a second thought? You don't get to lecture me, Ray. My voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. You wanted Helen? You got her. But don't come crying to me when you realize she's not as perfect as you thought. Damn it, David. I hung up, and it felt good. I spent the rest of the day in my motel room, scrolling through my phone, checking for updates. And sure enough, by late afternoon, Lisa texted me again. Lisa, 4:12 p.m., David. I don't know what's happening, but Helen didn't show up for work today. Her assistant said she called in sick, but people are talking. Helen? Skipping work? That was huge. She was obsessed with her job. It was her whole identity. But now, she was so wrecked she couldn't even put on a brave face. I had officially broken her. But I wasn't done yet. I had one more move left to make. And this one? This one was going to bury her. Helen skipping work? That was big. Helen never took days off. Even when she was sick, she'd drag herself to the office, powered by coffee and spite. For her to call in? That meant she wasn't just upset, she was falling apart. I let that sit for a moment. Let it soak in. Then I smiled. It was time for the finishing move. I left the motel around 5 p.m. and drove to our house. My former house. I wasn't going back to stay. I had already decided I wanted nothing to do with it. Too many memories, too much history. But I did have one last thing to take care of. When I got there, the place was eerily quiet. Helen still wasn't home. I stepped inside, grabbed a few more of my personal things, some clothes, my tools, my old records. Then I did what I had been planning since the moment she walked out. I put the house on the market. I had already spoken to a realtor that morning, just to check my options. Since the house was in my name, I didn't need Helen's permission to sell. And with the way the market was, I had no doubt it would go fast. By the time Helen did come home, she'd be walking into a house that had a for sale sign planted right in the front yard. I could only imagine the look on her face. As I was driving back to the motel, my phone buzzed again. Lisa, 5:47 p.m. David, you're not going to believe this. Helen was called into a meeting with the partners. They shut the door, and no one's seen her since. People are whispering that it has something to do with an affair. I grinned. Bingo. I had a strong suspicion that Helen had been screwing around with a client. And if that was the case? Her firm wasn't going to take it lightly. Everything was crashing down around her. She lost me. She lost financial security. She lost control. And now? She was on the verge of losing the career she had sacrificed everything for. I couldn't have planned it better if I tried. I spent the evening relaxing, flipping through TV channels in my motel room, feeling lighter than I had in years. Then, around 10 p.m., my phone started ringing again. Helen. I let it ring. She called again. And again. And again. Then she left a voicemail. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of me. I hit play. David, please, just call me back. Her voice was shaky. I don't know what to do. I made a mistake. I didn't think it would turn out like this. Please, just tell me where you are. There was the regret, the desperation, the consequences. I listened to the voicemail twice. Then I deleted it. Helen made her choice. Now she had to live with it. I woke up the next morning feeling great. Like, better than I had in years. No stress. No weight on my shoulders. Just a calm, quiet peace. I stretched, grabbed my phone and checked my messages. And there it was. Helen, 2:17 am, I'm sorry. That was it. Just those 2 words. No excuses. No anger. No manipulation. Just defeat. I stared at the message for a long time, waiting for some kind of reaction to hit me. Anger? Sadness? Regret? Nothing. I didn't feel anything for her anymore. And that was the best feeling of all. By the time I checked out of the motel, the real fun had already started. Lisa texted me again. Lisa, 9:12 am. David, Helen was in the office for less than an hour before she stormed out. She was crying. People are saying she got put on probation pending an investigation. Lisa, 9:30 am, she told her assistant to cancel all her meetings. No one knows where she went. I smiled. She was spiraling. Everything that made Helen Helen, her control, her power, her confidence, was gone. And I wasn't done yet. Around noon, I drove past our house. Sure enough, the for sale sign was already up. I didn't stop. Didn't even slow down. Just took a quick glance and kept driving. Helen would see it soon enough. And when she did, she'd finally understand what it felt like to lose everything. I spent the rest of the day relaxing. Had a nice lunch. Walked around the city. For the first time in forever, I felt free. Then, just as the sun was setting, my phone rang. Helen. I let it ring. Then my voicemail notification popped up. I debated ignoring it. But curiosity got the best of me. I hit play. David, please. I just need to talk to you. Her voice was different this time. Tired. I don't know what to do. Everything's falling apart. I need you. Please. I closed my eyes, listening to the words. Not because they hurt, but because they didn't. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt nothing for her. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. I let Helen's voicemail sit in my inbox. I didn't respond. I didn't even think about responding. She needed me? She was lost? Where was this energy when she was packing her bags for her romantic getaway with Ray? Where was this desperation when she looked me in the eyes and said, "We've grown apart. It happens"? Helen didn't need me. She needed a lifeline. But I wasn't throwing one. Around noon, I got another text from Lisa. Lisa, 12:05 p.m. David, I don't know what you did, but Helen came into the office today looking like a wreck. She was barely holding it together. Lisa, 12:10 p.m. She stormed out of a meeting, slammed her office door, and a few minutes later, I heard her yelling on the phone. Sounded like an argument. I had a good guess who she was arguing with. I could only imagine how that conversation went. Helen, Ray, I need you right now. Ray? Yeah, so about that? Because here's the thing. Ray wasn't some knight in shining armor. He was just a guy looking for an easy thrill. And now? Now Helen wasn't fun anymore. She wasn't the confident, untouchable lawyer he probably fell for. She was a mess. A sinking ship. And something told me Ray wasn't the kind of guy to stick around once the fun stopped. Sure enough, my phone rang about an hour later. Another unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But then, at the last second, I hit accept. David. I stayed silent. Let him talk first. I don't know what your problem is, man, but this is getting out of hand. I raised an eyebrow. Is it? Yeah. Helen's losing it. She's not sleeping, she's not eating, I cut him off. And that's my problem because? He exhaled sharply. Look, I get it, okay? You're hurt. But you've made your point. Just talk to her. Give her some closure or whatever. You're torturing her, man. I almost laughed. I'm torturing her? This man had the nerve to sneak around with my wife, help her destroy our marriage, and now I'm the bad guy because I refused to comfort her through the consequences of her own actions? I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch. Then finally I spoke. What? How's your job doing? Silence. Then a little quieter. What? I smiled. Just curious. Is your firm okay with you sleeping with married women? Does your boss know? He inhaled sharply. You wouldn't? Wouldn't I? I cut him off. I let that sink in. Then I hung up. I went about my day after that. Grabbed lunch. Went for a drive. Enjoyed the fresh air. And then, around 6 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Lisa, 6:05 p.m., David, something big just happened. I sat up. Me, what now? Lisa, 6:07 p.m., Helen was called into another meeting. This time, it was the senior partners. Lisa, 6:08 p.m., she was in there for over an hour. When she came out, she was pale. Shaking. She grabbed her things and left. I think they fired her. I stared at my phone. I knew this was coming. I had planned for it. But seeing it actually happen? Incredible. Helen had thrown me away like I was nothing. Like we were nothing. And now? She had nothing. Her job. Her reputation. Her security. Gone. I leaned back, letting that victory wash over me. And that's when I knew. I had won. The moment I read Lisa's text, I knew it was over. Helen had officially lost everything. Her job? Gone. Her reputation? In flames. Her affair? Probably falling apart at the seams. I wasn't sure how long she lasted in that meeting, but I knew exactly what had happened. The senior partners didn't fire people outright. No, they made them resign. Quieter. Cleaner. No lawsuits. No drama. Helen had spent her whole life building that career. She sacrificed weekends, vacations, and friendships to climb the corporate ladder. And now? She was just another disgraced lawyer with a ruined reputation. I let my phone fall onto the motel bed, staring at the ceiling. I should have felt satisfied. Should have celebrated. But all I felt was nothing. Not sadness. Not joy. Just the empty realization that everything I'd worked for, everything we had built, was truly gone. Helen had shattered it. And I had burned the remains to the ground. That night, my phone rang again. Helen. I didn't answer. A few minutes later, a voicemail popped up. I almost didn't listen to it. But something in me needed to hear it. I pressed play. David, please? I don't know what to do. Her voice was weak. Tired. She sounded like she had been crying. They made me leave. I don't have a job. I don't have anything. Please, just talk to me. I could hear her breathing shakily, like she was trying to hold herself together. I was stupid. I thought Ray would be different. But he's not. He doesn't. She cut off. A sniffle. Then a choked out, he left. There was the final nail in the coffin. Ray was gone. Of course he was gone. Guys like him don't stick around when things get hard. He was in it for the excitement, the thrill of sneaking around. But now? Helen wasn't exciting anymore. She was a wreck. A sinking ship. And Ray? He jumped overboard the moment he saw the water rising. David, please. I don't know where to go. Another sniffle. I miss you. I stared at my phone, listening to the silence after her words. And then? I deleted the voicemail. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Helen made her choice. Now she had to live with it. I sat in the dim light of my motel room, phone in hand, staring at the now empty voicemail inbox. Helen missed me? She missed stability. She missed the life she threw away. The home, the money, the security, all of it. She wasn't crying because she loved me. She was crying because she had nowhere else to go. I wasn't going to be her safety net. The next morning, I grabbed some coffee and sat outside, enjoying the fresh air. It felt good to breathe without the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. Then, just as I was finishing my second cup, my phone buzzed. Helen. I sighed, debating whether to let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up this time. I answered, staying silent. David? Her voice was raw. Desperate. I didn't say anything. Just waited. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but please, just talk to me. I took a slow breath. What do you want, Helen? Silence. Then a sniffle. I don't know where to go. I almost laughed. Almost. That's not my problem, I said flatly. David, please. You made your choice. My voice was calm, emotionless. Now you have to live with it. More silence. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven. I was wrong, she whispered. I thought I wanted something else, but I was so wrong. I ruined everything. I let that hang in the air. Yeah, I said finally. You did. Can we just, I don't know, meet? Talk in person? I smiled bitterly. Helen, I don't think you understand. I don't owe you anything. You walked away. You made that decision without a second thought. I was stupid, she blurted out. I didn't think. No, you did think, I cut her off. You thought I was weak. You thought I would always be there. You thought you could toss me aside and come back when it was convenient. But that's not how this works. Silence. David. Goodbye, Helen. And I hung up. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt free. The second I hung up, I knew it was really over. Not just legally. Not just financially. But mentally. I didn't love her anymore. I didn't hate her either. She was just nothing to me now. And that was the greatest feeling of all. For the next few days, I ignored Helen's calls. She tried everything. Anger. Guilt. Desperation. Helen, 8:32 a.m. David, this is childish. We need to talk. Helen, 12:50 p.m. At least tell me where you are. I just want to see you. Helen, 2:17 a.m. I can't sleep. I just want to talk. But I never responded. She wasn't my responsibility anymore. Then one evening I was sitting in my motel room, flipping through channels, when my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a picture. I clicked on it. It was Helen, sitting in her car, parked outside our old house. A single message followed. Helen, 7:44 p.m. I'm here. Please talk to me. I stared at the screen. She was waiting for me. In the driveway of a home that no longer belonged to either of us. And for the first time in a long time, I felt curious. What did she want? Closure? A second chance? Or was this just another desperate attempt to pull me back into her mess? I wasn't sure. But I was about to find out. I grabbed my keys. It was time to end this. I pulled up to the house just after dark. Helen's car was still there, parked in the driveway like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The for sale sign stood tall on the front lawn. The windows were dark. It wasn't our home anymore. I parked behind her and sat there for a moment, watching. Helen was hunched over in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. She needed to feel this. I stepped out and walked up to her car. As soon as she saw me, she scrambled out, eyes red and puffy. She looked different. Not the composed, confident lawyer who once stood over me, telling me she was leaving. Now, she was just another broken person who made a bad choice. David. She breathed. What do you want, Helen? I said, voice flat. She flinched. I needed to see you. I needed to explain. I let out a dry laugh. Explain? What's left to explain? You cheated. You walked away. And now, when it all goes to hell, you come running back? What do you expect me to do? I don't know, she burst out. I didn't think it would turn out like this. You thought Ray was your future? I finished for her. Her face crumpled. He's gone, David. He left as soon as things got bad. Of course he did. I shook my head. What, did you think he was going to be your knight in shining armor? That he actually cared? She looked down, shoulders shaking. I was stupid, she whispered. I ruined everything. I lost my job. I lost my home. I lost you. I sighed, crossing my arms. And what do you want me to do about it, Helen? Take you back? Pretend none of this happened? She lifted her head, eyes pleading. I don't know. I miss you. I stared at her. For a split second I saw her again, the woman I married. The woman I built a life with. But that woman didn't exist anymore. No, Helen. I shook my head. You miss what I gave you. The stability. The comfort. The life I built while you threw it away. Tears welled in her eyes. I made a mistake. Yeah, you did, I said coldly. And now you get to live with it? Silence stretched between us. Then, in a small, broken voice, you really don't love me anymore? I took a deep breath. And when I spoke, it was the easiest thing I'd ever said. No, Helen. I don't. She let out a shaky breath, wiping at her eyes. I guess, this is goodbye then? Yeah. I nodded. It is. She lingered for a moment, like she wanted to say more. But she didn't. She just nodded, turned back to her car, and drove away. I watched her taillights fade into the night. And for the first time in months, I felt free. Helen was gone. For real this time. No more texts. No more calls. No more desperate attempts to reel me back in. And you know what? It felt good. The weight on my chest that had been there for months was finally gone. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I wasn't anything. Helen had made her bed. Now she had to lie in it. Over the next few weeks, things started falling into place. The house sold. I got a great offer, finalized the paperwork, and walked away with a nice chunk of cash. Helen? Vanished. Lisa told me she was keeping a low profile, probably too embarrassed to face anyone from her old life. And Ray? Completely out of the picture. No one had heard from him since he bailed on Helen. Last I checked, he had quietly transferred to another office in another city, probably trying to escape the mess he helped create. Coward. One day, I was sitting in a cafe, enjoying my coffee, when I got a text from Lisa. Lisa, 10:24 a.m., thought you'd like to know. Helen officially moved out of the city. No one knows where she went. I stared at the message for a second. Then I smiled. That was it. The final chapter of the Helen saga. She was gone. And me? I was finally free to start over. A new city. A new life. A life without her. And for the first time in a long time, I couldn't wait to see what came next. A year ago, I thought my life was over. Helen's betrayal had ripped me apart, left me drowning in anger, grief, and confusion. I spent so many nights replaying every conversation, every sign I missed, every moment I thought we were happy. But now I barely thought about her. After selling the house, I packed my bags and moved to a new city. No big announcement, no dramatic farewell, just gone. New place, new job, new people. No ghosts from my past haunting me. And it was the best decision I ever made. Every now and then, Lisa would send me updates about the old crowd. Not often, just small things here and there. Helen never came back. No one really knew where she went, and honestly, I didn't care. She was just another bad decision in my past, a mistake I learned from. As for Ray, word was his career never really recovered. His reputation took a hit, and he struggled to move up in his field. Poetic justice. One night I was sitting at a bar, nursing a whiskey, when a woman slid into the seat next to me. We started talking. She was funny, smart, beautiful. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about Helen. I wasn't thinking about betrayal. I was just living. And it hit me. I had won. Helen? She lost everything. Her job, her reputation, her so-called soulmate. I walked away with my dignity, my freedom, and a future wide open with possibilities. The best revenge isn't anger. It isn't even payback. It's moving on. And that's exactly what I did.